Yeah, fine.
Right, I start off then the opening statement. Can I welcome all members and officers to this meeting in the Coychurch Crematorium Joint Committee, which will be held remotely via Microsoft Teams. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as practical following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing this meeting from remote locations. Please be ensure that mobile phones are switched off or to silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda, and I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch the cameras on at that point, but I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times you keep the cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference and to ensure the connection remains as stable as possible. If any members and officers wish to raise a point of question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen and the top right hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I'll come to you in order as received requests. Please lower your hand once you have finished speaking. The chat button has been disabled for this meeting. In the event of a vote on any agenda item, the officer from Democratic Services will call on the names of each member in turn who should vote for, against or abstain. At the conclusion of this process, the legal officer present will announce the result of the vote. Please do not use a microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout, and when necessary will mute those not being used. I would ask the officers to introduce themselves as and when invited to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off and not used. We'll now proceed to the agenda. And item 1, to receive apologies. Do we have any apologies for any officers or members?
No, I haven't received any apologies, Chair.
Great, thank you, Mike. Okay. Move to item 2 then, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Any members, officers? No? Okay. So item 3 then, approval of minutes, pages 3 to 6. Have you had a chance to check the minutes? Are we okay with the accuracy of the minutes? Yep.
Happy to second.
Right. Councillor John and Councillor Stevens moved and seconded.
Second. Yep.
Yep.
Fine.
All okay with that? Yep. Thank you. Right, so we'll move to item 4 on the agenda, the Crematorium business plan and fees, which is on page 7. I'm just going to make sure I get page on here, page 7. And I take it over to Joanna.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
For the purpose of the tape, I am Joanna Hamilton, the Bereavement Services Manager and Registrar for Coychurch Crematorium and Bridgend County Borough Council. The purpose of this report, which is starting on page 7, is to approve the business plan and the expenditure programme for the forthcoming financial year 2023-24, and including the proposed fees and charges. As detailed in paragraph 3.1, a business plan is presented annually to the Joint Committee for approval, which includes service objectives and proposed maintenance and improvement projects to enhance and maintain the crematorium grounds and buildings for the forthcoming financial year. If we turn to the service level business plan itself, described as attached at Appendix 1, it starts on page 11. You will see awards and achievements noted on page 14. We're utilising the larger page numbers on the bottom left of the page. Of particular note is the achievement of the Green Flag Award again in 2022, and the service remains financially self-sufficient. The report then details the staffing structure, including the 2 crematorium technicians that were employed in May 2020 to assist with resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic and currently providing staffing cover. Then the business hours are detailed, the types of memorialisation provided, the different ways that the crematorium markets itself and communicates with its service users, and the different ways that the crematorium remains environmentally sustainable. On page 17 and 18, the key achievements over the past 10 years are listed. Most recently in 2021, the installation of external lighting and the renewal of the two chapels' digital music facilities, including the installation of the visual tribute screens. And started in October 2022 and continuing into 2023, our big project, the structural building works currently taking place on site for the extension to the flower court and main chapel exit. At the bottom of page 18, the performance indicators are shown for the previous 5 years, which relate to user satisfaction, the results of which are taken from the service questionnaires sent to each cremation applicant. The target is to achieve 100% overall satisfaction levels rated good or excellent, and these remain constant at 100%, with a target set for the same result in 2023-24. So staying with the appendix, and in accordance with paragraph 4.1 of the Clerk and Technical Officer's report, the annual statistics for cremations in the calendar year 2022 are then detailed on page 19 and 20 of the business plan. The total number of cremations for 2022 was 1,571, and that's made up of 970 from Bridgend, 135 from the Vale of Glamorgan, and 402 from Rhondda and Taff, with 64 non-residents. An agreement with the Princess of Wales Hospital for the cremation of non-viable fetal remains has resulted in an additional 6 communal cremations. A further 5 individual fetal cremations were arranged directly with families. The statistical record table for 2021 is included for comparison purposes on page 21. And you will see the total number of cremations in 2021 was 1,887 compared to the 1,571 in 2022. Which is a decrease of 316 cremations in 2022. Now, I've explained in previous years that in 2020, the number of cremations had increased by 308 on the previous year as a result of the pandemic, having started in March 2020, and by 262 cremations in 2021. So we can see the 2022 figures settling back to the more normal pre-pandemic level. In accordance with paragraph 4.2 of the Clerk and Technical Officer's report, pages 22 to 23 of the business plan then outline the service developments and objectives previously agreed for the period 21-22 as a recap of recent large works completed. Page 22 details the annual income generated from the crematorium's abatement plant installed in 2016, enabling the crematorium to trade with Cameo. £4,844 has been received for the trading year 2021. We await confirmation of the potential amount of income it can expect to generate for 2022. I would make a note here that we would expect to continue to see a slight decrease in this annual income in the future as more crematoria install mercury abatement plant. Also detailed is the replacement of the two chapels' computerised music and media systems, which had been delayed due to the pandemic and was fully installed in December 21 on budget. The installation of external lighting to the grounds, again delayed due to the pandemic in the previous year, was completed in July 2021, below the original estimated budget. The bottom of page 23 outlines the agreed works for 2022-23. The Flower Court extension, which was unfortunately much delayed by the pandemic, received approval of tender and award of contract by the Joint Committee on the 15th of July last year, and works commenced on site on the 3rd of October last year, with an estimated completion period of 10 months. The budget amount was included in the 2022-23 budget, and because the building works span 2 financial years, it is also included in the 2023-24 budget. The other main focus of agreed service objectives for 22-23 are summarised on pages 24 and 25. And in addition to the construction of the Flower Court extension, were agreed as firstly the refurbishment of the Chapel of Remembrance to include the underfloor heating. Now, this project has been delayed due to the Flower Court building works taking place and has been reprogrammed into the work schedule and the budget for 2023-24. Secondly, improvements to the sight lines at the crematorium's exit gate to improve safety. Again, the project has been delayed for the same reasons, and the estimated cost is included in the 2023-24 budget. And thirdly, the installation of additional pathways in memorial areas to improve safety and pedestrian access, also reprogrammed and included in the 2023-24 budget. In addition to these proposed service developments being reprogrammed for 23-24, a property contingency is included in the crematorium's revenue budget to cover unplanned works and general repair and maintenance. I've added a note to remind the Joint Committee also that the surplus fund is designed to build up reserves for the future replacement of the cremators and ancillary plant in approximately 8 years' time, as well as fund all future service improvements. Maintaining this reserve will ensure the crematorium has sufficient long-term funds for both, plus any unplanned eventualities that could occur. The table on page 26 summarises the projected costs for these planned works and shows estimated funds moving from the current budget to the 2023-24 budget. And the table on page 27 provides details of the proposed overall budget for 2023-24. And this will be further detailed in the Treasurer's report, which follows this report. The table on page 26 summarises the timescales and officer responsibilities for the projects over the past and current financial year, and for the reported new objectives for 2023-24. So if we leave the business plan appendix and turn back to the Clerk and Technical Office report itself on page 8, I refer you to paragraph 4.3, which relates to the setting of charges for 2023-24, in particular the weekly adult cremation charge, and accordingly a general increase in all fees. The cremation charge for the current financial year places the crematorium at 287 out of 314 cremation authorities in a National Fee League table that was published in the summer of 2022, where the highest cremation charge is detailed first. It is recommended that the cremation charges increase by inflation from £745.70 to £824. This is based upon a general increase in fees of 10.5% based on the current inflation rate and in line with Regen Council's protocol. The table in paragraph 4.3 shows a comparison of current cremation fees for adjoining crematoria. Paragraph 4.4 on page 8 explains that the introduction of the unattended direct cremation fee for 2022-23 has been well received. This was introduced for those families who do not require a funeral service and where there is no mourner attendance, the coffin being transported to the crematorium at the start of the working day. It has raised an anomaly, however, with the fee of £82.10 currently charged for the weekday hire of the chapel for a memorial service, which is substantially lower than that charged by other crematoria and much lower than the difference between the £745.70 fee we charge for an unattended adult cremation, for an attended adult cremation, and the £550 fee we charge for an unattended cremation, the difference between the fees being £195.70. The table in paragraph 4.4 indicates a comparison on current fees charged by adjoining crematoria for the hire of the chapel for a memorial service. It's recommended, therefore, that the weekday charge for hiring the chapel for a 30-minute memorial service should be increased to £220 to bring it in line with neighbouring crematoria and fees charged by churches. The fee would be doubled for Saturdays. Paragraph 8 of the report confirms that all variations to expenditure and income, as outlined in the service level business plan and including the proposed increase in fees, have been incorporated into the Treasurer's report. The Joint Committee is recommended, therefore, to approve the service level business plan for 2023-24, to approve the cremation fee for 2023-24 at £824 and a general increase in all fees of 10.5%, and approve the fee for hiring the crematorium chapel for a 30-minute memorial service at £220 for 2023-24, which would double on Saturdays. Thank you, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you, Joanna, for that. Thanks for that. The report itself is quite detailed, but it's easy to read and understand as well. And I know there's some decisions there we need to make, and I'll give members opportunity to ask any questions first. Councillor John. You're on mute, Councillor. The dreaded mute.
There we are, that's better.
That's better.
Excellent report, Joanna, and thank you once again. Yes, I fully support the recommendations, Mr. Chairman, but I would also like to say the report itself, it's absolutely excellent with the information that we're given. And particularly, as you and I both and Barry attended the Christmas service, I found that particularly moving this year, because it's the first year that we've had a Christmas service for many years, well, with the COVID situation, and quite honestly, I found it more this year since it was the first time since my wife passed away, and the turning off the lights and putting lighting the candle was particularly moving for me, and I honestly thoroughly enjoyed attending, and as I love attending the Christmas service and everything associated with the crematorium, I think it's a fantastic job that everyone's doing, and is commended to Bridgend County Borough Council for the facility that we have there. It's absolutely superb. So just to finally say that it's not that the people of the Vale of Glamorgan are more healthy than anywhere else in Bridgend or the RCT. It's the case that our undertakers are telling people Bridgend is closed, go to Barry. And quite simply, there's been a bit of a row going on down, particularly in Lantford Major, that one or two people have spoke to me about it. Why is Coychurch closed? I said, it's not closed at all. You can use Coychurch. It's just that the main chapel is out of action at the moment, and explained everything to them. So, no, they're not more healthy, only that I see we had 5 burials in Lantford Major over the last 2 weeks. So maybe they're planting a little bit more at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that. And just a quick word, the Christmas service, I think, is something that's not easy to explain to some people. But it's not until you go to the Christmas service, the Christmas event, to appreciate how wonderful it is. And it's nice that annual celebration at Christmas and of past loved ones. So somehow we get the message out. More people to realise how great it is, and it's only limited capacity, we'll be of limited seating tickets next time perhaps. But it's a great event, yeah. And big thanks to Joanna and the team for putting that on this year after the break we've had. So thank you for that. I'm not sure how I seen Zach Shell's hand go up, then he went back down. So Zach, I think is okay, Zach, yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I was going to make a small point. Well, I might as well as you mentioned my name, but I thought it probably wasn't really worth labouring. But it was just to highlight that paragraph 4.4 after Joanna's presentation. It is probably a little unusual in that we're coming here and actually asking to put anything up, in a particularly substantial way, and especially if you compare the original £82 fee to the 220, in percentage terms, that's a really significant hike. But I think what Joanna really did explain well, and what the table shows very well, is that actually it's the original fee that's the anomaly. And what we are doing is bring it into alignment both with others. Actually, we're still quite cheap compared to the others, quite frankly. But certainly into the normal sort of realms, and bringing it into line with the differential between an attended and unattended cremation. So it makes perfect sense to make that change. Although, as starting technical officer, obviously I'm conscious that it is a substantive percentage increase for that particular fee item, but it is very much correcting an anomaly.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. It speaks for itself in many ways, but we'll come on to that. Now we got Councillor Simon Griffiths, and then Councillor Barry Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. So I think it was 2 points. I think Zach has actually just covered one of them. So I do note there's a considerable increase in that secondary no cremation fee. But I think you've put all the evidence in front of us that actually that is the aberration rather than the old charge. So I think that is perfectly fine. I do want to just open up a full justification really of the 10.5% increase along CPI. I mean, obviously you're aware that the council itself set its own budget earlier this week at a lower rate than that, and the majority of charges that the council is charging third parties hasn't really gone up by this sort of levels. But I think I take very much into mind the league table that you showed and the other comparisons with the local crematorium as well, and I think it bears a strong comparison. And I think the level of investment you're putting into improving the service in there justifies that. But I just wonder whether you could share a little bit of the thinking around that matching of the CPI.
Okay, Joanna.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have always set fees, and unless there is a reason for not doing so, and that has normally been that we need to set fees higher because we've been trying to achieve a certain project, such as many years ago when we were trying to increase our funds, our surplus funds, to create enough money to replace our cremators. But normally it's standard practice to set the increase at the current rate of CPI as based on the December figure. Now, it is, I accept that it's particularly high, that December figure, and I did query this with our accountancy section as to whether we should look at a lower fee. It was felt that as Bridgend Council's fees in general were set to go up by this figure, that it would, it would make much more sense for all departments to increase by that amount. And there are a lot of increases in our expenditure, such as our energy fees are very high. As you can understand, the gas expenditure, electricity expenditure has gone up an awful lot, as has absolutely everything that we buy in, quite frankly. All of our supplies, etc., have increased by a very high amount. Delivery charges, just about everything it has increased. So it was felt that that the crematorium should remain in step with the rest of the fee increases throughout the council for those reasons. And that's really, you know, as much as I can explain on it.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, if I can just come back to, so
Yeah.
I think, John, that's a very full explanation. Thank you very much. I think you're in a difficult situation in that the service that you provide is very well defined. There's very little you can do to reduce cost, or and we don't want to do that. And I completely accept that the costs have gone up, at least by CPI, actually, in the areas where you buy things, whether it's heating and electricity, they've gone up by higher figures than that. So what I really wanted to do is just check with yourself that we have thought about this deeply, and it was done with due consideration, and I think you've explained that very well. So thank you, Joanna. I'm happy.
Okay, thanks. Zach, I think you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think the key points for me is obviously, you know, the crematorium, you know, is a relatively high energy use, you know, in terms of, you know, its fundamental activity is one that relies on significant energy. And as we all know, you can't turn on the television without hearing about the costs of energy and how much they have gone up and are continuing to go up. And that is obviously affecting the facility. The other point for me is we are in a positive cash position, and we have been for a number of years, and we've always been very good at reinvesting and maintaining the standard of the facility because of that. And very much what I wouldn't like to see, you know, is if the crematorium decided to absorb more of the extra costs than it passed on a continuous basis, erode that positive financial position, and then lead to a lack of investment and a lack of standard of the facility. You know, as local authorities, we've seen that in many of our areas, you know, where it's been unavoidable. You know, but you know, if we can possibly avoid that position here, you know, we absolutely want to do that, and to be able to continue to maintain the high standards that the crematorium has always had. And I think keeping a pace with the increasing costs of the outside world will enable us to do that.
Okay, thank you. I think that's been well explained, Councillor Griffiths. You okay with it? Yeah, and
Yeah, very happy.
with
Thank
that?
you.
Okay, thanks. And thank you, Councillor Vice Stevens. You're waiting there patiently. Over to you next, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Just like to endorse some of the previous speakers. I think it's right to go along with the CPI increase. In fact, that's probably not enough to cover the energy costs that we're going to meet over the coming period. So I'm more than happy with that. To maintain our standards is paramount. We've got a good reputation, and it's good to see it continue in that way. And please extend our thanks, Joanne, to staff for all the hard work they've done. It's been a difficult time to maintain standards through COVID, etc. I think we've done an outstanding job, and the Crem and its area always looks really good, and I'm very proud to be associated with it. And I say that's all I'd like to say, really, but I'm fully supportive of the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Stevens. I echo those comments, and it's always a pleasure. And a strange way to go to the crematorium. I mean, you're never in fear of somebody going to be critical. Albeit you can easily be critical of anything, but there's one place you can go. Got to work hard to find to be critical. It's amazing. And let's take us to the report. And we have recommendations 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3. We had a mover, a proposal in a second, and then Councillor John moved it. Councillor Stevens second.
Yeah.
All members in favour? Okay with that? Happy with that? All in favour? Yeah.
Aye.
Don't you any? Yeah. Great. Thank you for that. So that's that. 3 recommendations approved, Joanna. And We'll now move on to a similar topic, but item 5 on financial performance. Are you taking this one, Joanna, or finance?
I'll be taking this one. Irish Thomas has passed this over to myself, so
Okay.
she's no longer on
Irish.
the call. Right, so thank you, Chair. For the purpose of the recording, my name is Dean Jones, and I am the accountant of the Financial Control and Controlling Team for Project Council. As in point 1.1 on page 31, the purpose of the report is to inform the Joint Committee of the projected financial performance of the Crematorium and to obtain approval from the Joint Committee for the 23-24 proposed budget and fees and charges, as they're illustrated in Appendix 1. As illustrated in point 4.1 on page 32, the projected deficit was £952,000 for the current year on the previously approved budget. However, it is now projected to be a deficit of £391,000 due to a total projected underspend of £561,000. As illustrated in point 4.2 on page 32, which goes on to page 33, the underspend is primarily due to the £513,000, as discussed earlier, primarily because of the planned capital maintenance. There was an underspend on Flower Court extension of £403,000 due to delays in procurement and tender as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, and which has resulted in the work not commenced until October last year. So an element of that has been put onto next year's budget, as well as our planned works for the Chapel of Remembrance and the groundswork paths have also been put into the budget for 23-24. Also outlined in point 4.2 are other under and overspends. The major underspend was in premises. This was of £132,000 due to an underspend in planned maintenance costs. There was a slight overspend in employee costs of £14,000 due to increased costs resulting from the support staff pay award, as no allowance was made for this within the budget setting. And there was also a slight overspend in supply services and transport, and the overspend was on items for resale. We also had a lower than budgeted income of £55,000 due to decrease in number of crematoriums following the coronavirus pandemic, and also the use of the small chapel rather than the large chapel. The proposed budget for 23-24 is shown in section 4.3 on page 34. The delayed capital maintenance expenditure earlier mentioned of £513,000 has been included in the budget, and as a result, the deficit which we're projecting is £71,000. The capital expenditure, which has been delayed into 23-24, will not require any loan charge or contribution from constituent authorities, as these will be funded from the revenue contributions and accumulated surplus from previous years. All 22-23 non-employee benefits have been reviewed and necessary adjustments made to meet anticipated expenditure for 23-24. The employee budgets have been adjusted to reflect the salary increments, although no allowance has been made for pay award in 23-24. As set out in point 4.7 on page 35, the 23-24 fees and charges, as Joanna mentioned earlier, which are also shown in Appendix 1, have generally been increased by the Consumer Price Index in December of 10.5%. But the memorial services are outside this, and they have been recommended an increase from £82.10 to £220, as discussed previously by Joanna. Also, the income budget has been prepared based on a decrease in the levels of activity experience of the last 2 years as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, and the planned number of cremations timetabled whilst capital works are completed. With regards to reserves, which are shown in point 4.9 on page 35 of the committee report, is projected to show a balance of 2.718 million as at the 31st of March 2024, once the projected deficit for 22-23 of 391,000 and 23-24 of 71,000 are accounted. This is considered a sufficient level to maintain and protect the service in light of unknown demands or emergencies which arise in the future. All financial impacts are reflected within the report, and what I recommend to the joint committee is to note the projected financial performance for 22-23, confirm and approve the revenue budget to be adopted for 23-24, and also approve the increase in fees and charges with effect from the 1st of April this year. Thank you for listening. Back over to the chairman.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Thanks for presenting that report, which speaks for itself in many ways. All the figures there. I've got Councillor Simon Griffiths, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dean. Yeah, that was very clear. Very easy to follow. It's just a point of information I'm really looking for, which is with that increase to the 220, do we have, or the fee rate, do we have an idea about how much additional revenue that will bring in over the coming year?
Right, I believe as illustrated in the table on, I don't know if we have a breakdown individually. I can have a look if we've got that. We have got an increase in fees and charges to 1.625 million this for 23-24 from 1.555 million. But I can have a look to see if we got any more further details.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it's not important for today, but thank you very much. It's just of interest to see how that much changed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for that. Joanna? Joanna, are you there? Oh, on mute. Wait.
Apologies.
Oh, there you are. There.
Okay. Councillor Griffiths, yes, I'm sorry. We haven't worked out the exact increase that those fees will bring in. In reality, we don't do a huge number of memorial services in a year. In fact, if we do one a month, maybe two, that's probably as many as we do. The problem that I was starting to find was that, and particularly at the moment, to protect the service while we've got all these works going on in particular, before we moved into the small chapel and we were in the large chapel, it was becoming apparent that we were starting to be used by local funeral directors for services in our chapel before moving somewhere else. So maybe for a burial in a cemetery or something else to happen with the body, which is fine to a point. But our primary concern has to be cremation. And because our fee was so much below local churches, etc., then it was becoming clear that they'd clocked this loophole. And then when we brought in the direct cremation fee, logic says that if you've got an adult cremation fee and a direct cremation fee, one attended, one non-attended, the difference between the two should normally reflect what it would cost to hire a chapel without a cremation. And if you were clever, you would come to me and say, I want a direct cremation and I want a 30-minute memorial service at that time.
Yes.
And so I noticed that we had a bit of an issue, and then looking around, other crematoria were clearly aware of this. So we're not going to make a huge amount of money out of it. It's just making sure that our fees are sensible and compare properly to others. I'd also make note of the fact that the fee that we've increased from which was the £80.10, I think, off the top of my head now. So I haven't quite got that in front of me. That used to be linked to another fee, which is the fee to extend a cremation service by 30 minutes. So what we actually have is a fee for two things: extend a cremation service by 30 minutes and hire the chapel for just a memorial service. Now, we haven't changed that fee to extend a cremation service by 30 minutes. Yes, it's still very low, but we don't want to penalise people for doing that. We want to encourage them to be allowed that extra half hour if they need a more substantial period of time for a service. So we have looked at that and made sure that we haven't done it in a detrimental way for cremation services, but we're making sure that our primary concern is to protect cremation and not become just a general place for the hire of a chapel because we're cheap. Okay.
Thank you, Joanna. Explained that well, spot on.
Yeah, if I could just respond,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a really very good explanation, Joanna, and I can see that you're actually working hard to protect the service and the principal purpose of it, which is cremation. So thank you for actually being ahead of the game, actually, and recognizing the risk, because if it fills up with very low paid memorial services, then that will in future years pose a problem for us. So thank you very much for anticipating that problem and dealing with it. So thank you.
Great, okay. Do we have any more questions? No further questions or comments? Okay, so we've got recommendations 9.1, A, B, and C. For us there, do we have a mover and a seconder for those recommendations? Move Councillor Griffiths, second Councillor Stevens. And Councillor John, in fact, we're all in agreement to take it then. No. Who's against that? We're all in favour. Okay. Thank you very much. That's approved. That report. So we'll move on swiftly then to item 6, which is back to Joanna, I think, on the programme of meetings the next year. Joanna.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a very brief report. The purpose of the report to seek approval for the proposed programme of meetings for 2023-2024. As you're aware, the memorandum of agreement for the crematorium states that the joint committee shall hold 2 meetings at least in a municipal year, one of which must be the annual general meeting, and the first meeting of the joint committee after the annual meetings of councils shall be the joint committee's annual general meeting, and that's the meeting that the joint committee will elect a chairman and a vice chairman for the ensuing year. And the joint committee may hold as many other meetings at such intervals as they find necessary or convenient. So we're proposing that the following programme of meetings goes ahead, that the 9th of June 2023 will be the annual general meeting, and then followed on the 1st of September this year, and then again the business report meeting on the 1st of March 2024. So the recommendation, please, is to approve the programme of meetings for 2023-24. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Joanna. I just wonder whether there's an opportunity as well, perhaps not a formal meeting, to actually have the site visit at some point in the summer to look at great works that's going on there, and to look at these proposals. It mentioned in the report earlier the sight lines for the entrance or the exit pathways. Be a good opportunity to walk around on a nice sunny day, perhaps. Easier said than done, but and see the great works that's going on with the flower court extension. Councillor Griffiths.
Yeah, that would be fantastic if we could get that opportunity, especially when the flower court is completed. So maybe that's the right opportunity to do it just after the completion.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joanna.
Yes, as you know, Councillor Smanswick, the AGM is normally the meeting that we try to do that. We try to have a site meeting before it, and then we continue on to the AGM. Now, I'm sort of hoping that we will be able to, and it's really dependent upon the stage that we've reached with the extension. We will certainly, you know, be nearing completion, but I don't believe that we will have completed at that point. And we may be a month or two off it. So depending on how that goes, you know, then if we can't quite get it into June, we may maybe look at September, but certainly we will look to do a site meeting for councillors, and particularly as there are new councillors on the joint committee who haven't had a proper tour of the facilities to date. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Joanna. I'll leave that in your hands then to arrange as and what's appropriate, but that'd be great. Thanks for that. So the recommendation there for the dates and meetings, we all well, mover and seconder.
Move.
First move, Mr. Stevens. Seconded. All in favour, I take it. Those dates.
Yep.
Great. Thank you for that. That's approved. And then item 7 then is urgent items. I'm not aware of any. Anything, Joanna or Zach or anybody? There's no urgent items. Been notified? Nope.
No.
Okay. That's the case. That brings this meeting swiftly to an end at 14:50.